It's been a big week for Palantir. After last week's announcement, the stock will be headed to the S&P 500. Here to talk about what this has meant for the stock all this week is MarketBeat analyst Chris Markoch. Chris, you have been following and talking about Palantir for years. In fact, just last month, we talked about what it would mean for Palantir if it makes it into the S&P 500. So is the reaction as big as we thought it would be?
I think so. I think it surprised me how sharply it spiked up immediately after the announcement in the after hours on Friday and into Monday morning. But yeah, I mean, the stock's up about 15%, which is a nice boost that you might expect a stock like Palantir to get after such an announcement. Things have leveled off a little bit here in the last few days. I think people are now trying to figure out where the stock might go next. But, that 15% bump was a pretty nice thing for investors.
Absolutely. And getting into the S&P 500 is no small thing. It's something Palantir tried before. They didn't quite make it before. What made the difference this time around? What actually got them into this big milestone?
That's difficult to say, that there was one specific reason. Companies have to meet different milestones to get there. I think what's becoming undeniable is Palantir is one of the leading companies in what's happening in the area of AI. And not just that, but there was a report by Forrester Research that named Palantir as the best artificial intelligence slash machine learning platform available. And so people realize that Palantir's working in the field of AI and doing something differently than other companies are doing it. And that could be a catalyst for the type of growth that Palantir needs to justify the stock price that it has.
Now, let's talk about the stock price a little
Right.
bit. You've been encouraging people to get in on Palantir since
Mhm.
the early stages.
Right.
And we talked a little bit about some analysts thinking the stock price was already too high. Well, it
Right.
just has kept going up now. What do you think it means for investors to try to get in right now at this price point?
Well, I guess my advice might be that if you don't currently own Palantir shares, and perhaps maybe even if you do, you might want to wait for the stock to pull back a little bit. And I'll show you what I mean when we look at the Palantir chart over the last year. Um, you've seen that the stock has gone up significantly, two or three times. And in each case, at least in the last two cases, it's also dropped down a little bit too. So there's been sort of an initial euphoria and then the stock retreats back. However, what's important to note is that the surge it made in March and April of this year, the dip wasn't quite as severe as the one perhaps early in 2024. So what that's saying is the stock's making higher highs and it's making lower lows, and that's something that's a bullish trend for the stock. Right now, that's playing out in the analyst estimate. The overall consensus estimate for Palantir is that they are looking for a stock to be trading around the $29 level, which is kind of around in here. However, Palantir just got a very bullish price target from Bank of America this week of $50 per share. Why is that significant? Well, if you look at the trough right here in Palantir to the current price here, that's a difference of about 42%. Well, if you took that and said there's going to be another 40 to 42% gain in the stock from where it is right now, it puts it at, guess what, about $50. So that's where some analysts believe the stock could go in the next 12 months. The key is, when do you get in? Because the reality when you look at this chart is, if you weren't in Palantir when it started making the big gains, you've missed out on those big gains. However, if you look at where Bank of America believes the stock can go, you can still get in the stock today and be potentially looking at a nice 40% gain.
Yes, it's always that risk or that gamble of where is it
Yep.
going to go from here, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, Chris. This is for individual investors who are looking to buy Palantir on their
Right.
own. But now that Palantir is into the S&P 500, it means a lot of people, a lot of those bigger hedge funds,
Right.
they're going to be purchasing this stock. What does that mean for Palantir and for investors?
Well, what it's going to mean, actually, I think for a lot of investors is you're going to see perhaps maybe some short-term volatility in Palantir, but I think in the long term, you're going to see some of that volatility smooth out, because once a stock gets more heavily owned by institutions, there's a little bit more price stability there. So I think I don't want to sit here and throw cold water and say the biggest gains are all gone. As I just showed you on the chart, and where the analysts are projecting the price to be, there can be still some significant run up with Palantir stock. But I think that right now, in the short term, investors might expect a little bit of choppiness, because remember, for every buyer there has to be a seller, so there's going to be a little bit of choppiness as institutions try to buy, and there has to be some people trying to sell.
Well, this is all some good information for anyone interested in Palantir, or some good news for those who may already own the stock. Thanks again, Chris, for going over what's been happening with Palantir this week. We will continue to follow this stock story right here on MarketBeat. As always, happy investing.